गुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय तले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधारा शिवाशदि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome to our daily glorification of Srīmad Bhāgavatam. We are reading from Canto 2, Chapter 3, Pure Devotional Service Change in Heart. And today we'll discuss text 11, Krishna Willing. To SB 2.3.11. एतावानिव यजताम् इहानि श्रेयसोदयः भगवत्यचलो भावो यद्भागवत संगतः। एतावानिव यजताम् इहानिह श्रेयसोदयः भगवत्यचलो भावो यद्भागवत संगतः। एतावानेव यजताम् इहानिह श्रेयसोदयः भगवत्याचलो भावो यद्भागवत संगतः। Synonyms, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Etavan, all these different kinds of worshippers. Eva, certainly. Yajatam, while worshipping. Iha, in this life. Niha Shreyasa, the highest benediction. Udayaha, development. Bhagavati, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Achalaha, unflinching. Bhava, spontaneous attraction. Yat, which. Bhagavat, the pure devotion of the Lord. Sangataha, association. Translation. All the different kinds of worshippers of multi-demigods can attain the highest perfectional benediction, which is spontaneous attraction, unflinchingly fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by the association of pure devotee of the Lord. Would anyone like to read the purport, please?
I can read.
Yeah, good one.
All living entities in different stages of life within the material creation, beginning from the first demigod, Brahmā, down to the small ant, are conditioned under the law of material nature or the external energy of the Supreme Lord. The living entity in his pure state is conscious of the fact that he is a part and parcel of the Lord, but when he is thrown into the material world on account of his desire to lord it over material energy, he becomes conditioned by the three modes of material nature and thus struggles for existence for the highest benefit. This struggle for existence is something like following the will o' the wisp under the spell of the material enjoyment. All plans for material enjoyment, either by worship of different demigods, as described in the previous verses of this chapter, or by modernized advancement of scientific knowledge without the help of God or demigod, are illusory only, for despite all such plans, for happiness, the conditioned living being within the compass of material creation can never solve the problems of life, namely birth, death, old age, and disease. The history of the universe is full of such plan makers, and many kings and emperors come and go, leaving a plan making story only. But the prime problems of life remain unsolved despite all endeavors by such plan makers. Actually, human life is meant for making a solution to the problems of life. One can never solve such problems by satisfying the different demigods by different modes of worship or by so called scientific advancement in knowledge without the help of God or the demigods. Apart from the gross materialists who care very little either for God or for the demigods, the Vedas recommend worship of different demigods for different benefits, and so the demigods are neither false nor imaginary. The demigods are as factual as we are, but they are much more powerful due to their being engaged in the direct service of the Lord in managing different departments in the universal government. The Bhagavad Gita affirms this, and the different planets of the demigods are mentioned there, including the one of the supreme demigod, Lord Brahma. The gross materialists do not believe in the existence of God or the demigods, nor do they believe that different planets are dominated by different demigods. They are creating a great commotion about reaching the closest celestial body, Chandralok or the moon. But even after much mechanical research, they have only very scanty information of this moon, and in spite of much false advertisement for selling land on the moon, the puffed up scientists or gross materialists cannot live there, and what to speak of reaching the other planets, which they are unable even to count. However, the followers of the Vedas have different method of acquiring knowledge. They accept the statements of the Vedic literatures as authority in toto, as we have already discussed in Canto 1, and therefore they have full and reasonable knowledge of God and demigods and of the different residential planets situated within the compass of the material world and beyond the limit of the material sky. The most authentic Vedic literature, accepted by the great Indian acharyas like Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, Vishnu Vami, Nimbarka, and Chaitanya, and studied by all important personalities of the world, is the Bhagavad Gita, in which the worship of the demigods and their respective residential planets are mentioned. The Bhagavad Gita 9.25 affirms, यान्ति देवा व्रता देवान् पितॄन् यान्ति पितृव्रता भूतानि यान्ति भूतेज्या यान्ति मध्यजिनोऽपि माम्. The worship of demigods reach the respective planets of the demigods, and the worshippers of forefathers reach the planets of the forefathers. The gross materialist remains in the different material planets, but the devotees of the Lord reach the kingdom of God. We also have information from Bhagavad Gita that all the planets within the material world, including Brahmalok, are but temporarily situated, and after a fixed period, they are all annihilated. Therefore, the demigods and their followers are all annihilated at the period of devastation, but one who reaches the kingdom of God gets a permanent share in the eternal life. That is the verdict of Vedic literature. The worshippers of demigods have one facility more than the unbelievers due to their being convinced of the Vedic version, by which they can get information of the benefit of worshipping the Supreme Lord in the association of the devotees of the Lord. The gross materialist, however, without any faith in the Vedic version, remains eternally in darkness, driven by a false conviction on the basis of imperfect experimental knowledge or so called material science, which can never reach into the realm of transcendental knowledge. Therefore, unless the gross materialists or the worshippers of the temporary demigods come in contact with a transcendentalist like the pure devotee of the Lord, their attempts are simply a waste of energy. Only by the grace of the divine personalities, the pure devotees of the Lord, can one achieve pure devotion, which is the highest perfection of human life. Only a pure devotee of the Lord can show one the right way of progressive life. Otherwise, both the materialistic way of life, without any information of God or the demigods, and the life engaged in the worship of demigods in pursuit of temporary material enjoyments, are different phases of phantasmagoria. They are nicely explained in the Bhagavad Gita also, but the Bhagavad Gita can be understood in the association of pure devotees only, and not by the interpretations of politicians or dry philosophical speculators. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for reading such a nice purport, such a nice, beautiful purport, such a nice way, in such a nice manner as well. So, in in chapter 2 of this canto, Sukadeva Goswami explains Parikshit Maharaj the path of mukti, which is in a response to his question about the duty of a dying man. And then he also explains in the same chapter that at the end of the chapter that the intelligent man actually takes path of bhakti. Now, in this chapter, Sukadeva Goswami continues responding further by further explaining the activities of a less intelligent man. So, and what are they? A demigod worship. So, verses 2 to 9 of this chapter talks about worship of different demigods for fulfilling different material desires. And then verse 10 describes that if one has no material desire, akama, or in other words, they are called as bhakta, they have only desire to serve the Lord, or one is full of desire, sarvakama, or they are, in other words, they are called karmis, or they are mokshakama, they are desirous of liberation. But of all of them, one who has a broader outlook, broader intelligence, those who are udarati, only they can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can then see that Krishna is the ultimate authority, even for the material benefits, and all demigods serve under his jurisdiction. So they must worship the Lord with the intense bhakti. So that was verse 10. Now the question comes that if one has an inclination towards the demigod worship, or one who has worshipped the demigod throughout his life, will they graduate with the Tivra Bhakti? Will their worship into demigod eventuate into the pure devotional service? The answer is no. His Grace Bhurijan Prabhu, in his book Unveiling His Lotus Feet, he quotes Srila Sridhar Swami, and he explains that Sukadeva Goswami in previous verses explained that how the worshippers of many demigods can attain devotional service. He says that the worshippers, Yajatan, the worshippers of Indra and the other demigods, in the course of their demigod worship, Iha. So this is basically breaking up the verses into the understanding of the process. That in the course of the demigod worship, that means Iha in this life, can, by associating with the Lord, Sangataha, devotees of the Lord, Bhāgavataha, attain unflinching achala. Achala word is chala and achala. We might have heard this word. Basically, chala means one who varies, the one who remains steady. Steady here, not stagnant is the right word, is called achala. Attain unflinching devotion, bhava, to the Lord, Bhagavata. And in this way, Udayaha, they attain the supreme goal, Niha Shreyasa. All other demigods all other things are insignificant in the comparison of that attainment. So the crux of the verse is that the devotee association alone can give one bhakti. His Grace Vaidarbhi Mataji, one of her Srīmad Bhāgavatam class, she gave the reference of Madhurya Kadumbini, in which Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur does the analysis of where does bhakti come from, and in that analysis he explores different causes, explores different options, what could have caused bhakti, but at the end he concludes that the bhakti comes from bhakti. And who has that bhakti? Only pure devotee of Lord, only pure devotee of Krishna can have bhakti. Before every Srīmad Bhāgavatam class, we glorify Srīmad Bhāgavatam by reciting this verse that Nashtaprayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. What that means is that by regular attendance in a Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all troublesome that is in the heart is completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead is established, is an irrevocable fact. That this the verse of the translation of the verse is like that. And in the purport of this and the purport of this verse, Srila Prabhupada gives the example of the Narad Muni and his previous life, who was simply associating the Bhaktivedantas, the Bhagavatas, and by association and the accepting the remnants of the foodstuff, he got the chance to become the great devotee of the Lord, the great personality of Narada. And in that purport, Srila Prabhupada says that it should be noted that by such sincere association of Bhagavatas, one is sure to receive the transcendental knowledge very easily. With the result of that, he becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord. The more progress is made in devotional service under the guidance of the Bhagavatas, the more one becomes fixed in the transcendental service, transcendental loving service of the Lord. So now connecting this verse with today's verse, regardless of the types of desires one carry, regardless of the practice that one follows, regardless of the background one may have, if they come into the association of the devotees of the Lord, and if they practice udaradi, if they take broader outlook, then they can attain the unflinching faith in the Lord. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about two types of people. First one is the gross materialist who actually try to who try to enjoy materially by doing various research and material advancement by undertaking different scientific research and experiments. And the other example that the other type of people Prabhupada talks are demigod worshippers. So they worship different demigods for different material benefits, as we have seen in previous verses. But in both of these type of two people, they share the commonality of the faults, that both of them are driven by the desire of the temporary material benefit. Demigods, of course, want a comfortable life, higher position, higher power, maybe a progression to a higher planet. Same way, gross materialists also try to, every now and then, quite often, talks about scientists undertaking a research and trying to go to the other planets, but without that they don't have a knowledge that going to the other planet is not possible without actually undertaking a devotional service. So both of them are actually driven by the desire of a temporary material enjoyment. Another fault in them is that they try, despite of their trials, they fail to solve the ultimate problem of life, which is birth, old age, disease, and death. In both of the endeavors, the results that are attained are perishable. Because why? As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, and as Prabhupada begins the purport with, that everything that is in this material creation, from the highest topmost planet of Brahmā to the down to the little ant, everything is subject to the annihilation. So whatever endeavor they put and whatever result that they may achieve out of these endeavors, they are not eternal. They are still subject to they are perishable, and because they are perishable, because they are perishable, it is a waste of energy. And then it is also mentioned that because this gross materialist, they rely on the imperfect experimental knowledge, and demigod worshippers, they think foolishly that they seek the limited benefits from the demigods, that the result of their practice is again remain limited to this planet. So Prabhupada in the second last paragraph make a very key talks about a very key difference between the gross materialist and between the demigod worshippers. That the key difference is that the demigod worshippers still operate within the Vedic framework, while gross materialists completely disregard the higher authority, completely disregard the Vedic injunctions, because they don't believe in superior power. what they believe is everything is experimental and gained by research and knowledge. And because of that, demigod worshippers are better situated to get the information about worshipping the Lord and in the association of pure devotees. So how do we understand that? Let's take an example of King Prachinabhari. The story of King Prachinabhari comes in Canto 4, and which very aptly substantiate this point of association of a pure devotee can lead one to the pure devotional service. So in the fourth canto, there is a story of a King Prachinabhari. He is the descendant of a Dhruva Maharaj, who was a great devotee of the Lord. And seeing the king wasting his life in fruitive activities and not desiring a liberation from the material world, Narada Muni approaches. He felt compassion and he approaches King Prachinabhari. Narada Muni asked King Prachinabhari that, my dear king, what do you desire by performing these fruitive activities? The chief aim of life is to get rid of the material miseries and enjoy happiness. But these two things cannot be realized by fruitive activities. Srīmad Bhāgavatam 4.25.4. And King into that response, which comes in the following verses 5 and 6, he says that those who are interested in so-called beautiful life, or namely remaining as a householder, entangled in sons and wife, searching after wealth, thinking that such things are the ultimate goal. Such people simply wander in the different types of body throughout material existence without finding out the ultimate goal of life. So, O great soul Narad, my intelligence is entangled in these activities. Therefore, I don't know what is the ultimate goal of life, and kindly instruct me so that I can get out of this entanglement of fruitive activities. And in the purport of that verse, Srila Prabhupada writes that as long as a person is entangled in fruitive activities, he is bound. He is bound to accept one body after another. And this is called karma bandha famsa, entanglement. Entanglement in fruitive activities. It does not matter whether one is entangled in pious or impious activity. For both causes, further entanglement in material bodies. And we have heard this time and again. It started with the very beginning of our learning. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that regardless your activities are pious or impious, you have to come back to this world to enjoy or to suffer, or technically suffer in both instances. And such activities simply cause entanglement, transmigration from one body to another. Now, so what fruitive activity means? Hardworking for material enjoyment, but also actually means going through pains, suffering, and distress in their pursuits. Prahlad Maharaj in Canto 7 says that Sukhaya Dokha Mokshaya Sankalpa Iha Karmina Sada Noti Haya Dukham Iha Anihaya Sukhavrita. Then the translation goes like this, that in this material world, every materialist desires to achieve happiness and diminish his distress, and therefore he acts accordingly. Actually, however one is happy, as long as one does not endeavor for happiness, but as soon as one begins his activity for happiness, his conditions of distress begin. Such an apt word. We had a fortune of having his Grish Bhagavatam Prabhu in our Bhakti Viksha class, and he made this statement very aptly, which is relevant to our discussion today. That the fact that we desire separately from Krishna, he created this material world for us. Because we desire to be separate from Krishna, he created this material world. As this verse goes, sankalpa iha karminaha. That from the very inception, from the very point of inception of a desire, the distress begin. And we can practically experience that in our life also, that if we desire a simple thing, for example, going out and eating at the restaurant. I know as devotees, it's not recommended because we should all have prasadam, but just for the hypothetical discussion purpose, just for the purpose of just as minute as thing, just to go out and eat at the restaurant, there is so much effort that goes behind it. Okay, where to go, what to eat, then the different family members have different inclination, or one wants to go at another place, and then timing, and then waiting, and then if the restaurant is vegetarian, does the restaurant serve food without onion and garlic? And if we think and reflect, the entire process is so distressful. Sometimes it's easier to just cook at home, offer it to the Lord and eat it. It could be, it could be as simple as that. But because we are in the moment of those desires, sometimes we tend to disregard those things despite of knowing it. So in the example of King Prachanabhari also, he found a best spiritual master, Narad Muni, who narrated him a story of a Puranjan. It's a detailed story. I won't be able to cover it in today's class. But upon hearing his story, actually King Prachanabhari was able to know the true value of life, and then he actually continued on the path of self-realization and achieved the success. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that devotees of Krishna are like doctors. They assess the situation perfectly and gives the remedy according to their level and according to their inclination. And Narada Muni, who was the son of a maidservant in his previous life, he became a great devotee just by association of Bhagavatas. And so much so that he became a spiritual master of high-class devotees like Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, Vyasadeva himself. And so, and while I was saying that, devotees are perfect in assessing a situation, in Damodar Lila, we discussed the activities of Nalakuvara and Manigriva in detail. And Narad Muni could come up with a perfect solution as the remedy so that their devotional service could be awakened. So it is like that. Here, if we think and reflect, the desire is the driving factor. And all our activities are in the pursuit of satisfying those desires only. As I mentioned earlier, Bhagavatam Prabhu was saying that the fact that we desire to forget Krishna, he created this material world for us. And by the arrangement of the Lord, the devotees intervene in our lives, teaches us what to desire according to our level, according to our capacity to understand. And that's not done. After that, we have to keep endeavoring for that association. It is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Bhakti Janma Mulahaya, Sadhu Sangha, Krishna Prema Janme Teno Puna Mukhya Anga. That the root cause of devotional service to Lord Krishna is the association with the advanced devotees. Even when one's dormant love of Krishna is awakened, the association with devotees is still most essential. So even if we begin, which we are all, because we are here we are regularly attending Srīmad Bhāgavatam, we are chanting, we are serving at the temple, but that does not mean that we don't need association. We still have to keep endeavoring because it is the most essential part. Again, His Grace Bhagavatam Prabhu was saying that bhakti is progressing, and as he quoted many times, that we have to keep showing up. Srila Radhanath Maharaj shares this thing very nicely. He says that association is just not a detail. Association is just not one aspect of bhakti. All scriptures, and we hear this time and again in this 6 weeks of period, including Damodar Leela, and after starting Canto 2, there have been 3 verses that came into my mind straight away, where the glorification of the association of devotee is described. So all the scriptures have this conclusion that a moment of an association with the pure sadhu is most valuable thing in the creation, and because of that moments of association, sadhu can open the doors for the loving service to Krishna in our lives. There is nothing more valuable than that. But then Srila Radhanath Maharaj further adds, and which is very strong point, answers the question that I had in my mind very clearly. He says that there is no devotee ever read Srila Prabhupada books and doesn't know somewhere in his consciousness, at least theoretically, that goal of life is to love Krishna. Even if they don't practice, it gets registered into their mind when once they read the Srila Prabhupada. And not only that, but in the association of the pure devotees, that essence remains always in the forefront. I repeat the sentence: in the association of the devotees, that essence remains in the forefront. That always remain in the forefront, and which is so true. We have all seen and experienced that in our life. We all come with different backgrounds, or maybe Indian backgrounds, but with different conditioning, different lifestyles. Devotee at some point intervened in our life, and things changed. So when we associate with them, what happens? We observe their behavior. We observe the choices that we make. We observe the responses to the situation they give. Externally, things may look the same, but when we associate with them, we find out these things, and that's what leaves the lesson with. That's what leaves the deep lesson with us. Hence, the association of devotees is highly emphasized every now and then. There is a verse in Srīmad Bhāgavatam which emphasizes the association of devotees. I just want to read this from one of the purport of Srila Prabhupada, and with this I would conclude. So in the purport of verse 4.34 of Srīmad Bhāgavatam, Srila Prabhupada says that the topmost benediction for those who are living in this material world are subjected to repetition of birth and death, transmigration, in association with the pure devotees. One should search out the pure devotees and remain with them. That will make one completely happy, even though living within the material world. This Krishna consciousness movement is started for that purpose. A person who is overly affected materially may take advantage of this movement and become intimately associated with it. In this way, the confused and frustrated inhabitants of this material world may find the highest happiness in the association with the devotees. SP 4.30.34. I would stop here. My apologies, I went 4 minutes over. If anyone has any questions or corrections or comments, please feel free to share. Okay. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Krishna willing, we see you again tomorrow for glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thanks,
Krishna,
Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Mataji. Hare, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you for your class. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
So, next.